Okay, my first question this week, and I'll not preface this with anything, just so you can figure out where I'm going with it. We'll get there in a minute. But does a game need to have meaningful context to you for it to be a great game?
No, you can have a great game between two terrible teams. I mean, I feel like context helps. If there's something to play for, that certainly adds more significance to the matchup, and certainly probably leads to more fans in the stands. It typically means better teams are playing, so the quality of play may be better. But can two bad teams produce a great game? Sure, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with you.
Okay.
But as long as guys are competitive and they get out there and they want to beat each other, then you could have a great game. I can see that. For me as a sports writer, I always want context. I always want the motivation, the why, you know.
I get it. I feel like that's two different things. I feel like you're talking about the story of the game and not just the game. I mean, like I said, you could take, you know, and there was a few years ago when the Browns, remember before Baker Mayfield got there, when they were like 0-16, 1-15, and didn't they knock somebody off? I'm trying to, obviously I don't remember the game, but like their one win that year, it was they knocked somebody off, and it was a great game, and it like came down to the wire, and they put together, you know, one great game all year, and you know, so yeah, you can have a bad team put together a great game, and you can have two bad teams put together a great game.
Well, you know, I just think that a recipe for a great game here in Central Texas means that I'm showing up to cover
it. Well,
and I don't show up to cover it unless there's at least some context.
You know, we usually talk about food on here. Maybe we should talk about a little slice of humble pie.
So that's a big lead into where I'm going with this, because, you know, Friday night at Waco-ISD-Stadium, there'll be two different radio crews there. We'll have a reporter there. I'm sure the TV stations will go by and get some obligatory highlights, if there are any, for the Waco High versus Midway clash. One of those teams is going to walk away with their first win of the year. So, yeah, I mean, neither one are going to the playoffs. They may both be mathematically eliminated from the playoffs at this point. Although that's probably not true with four teams.
I don't think it is. I know when I talked to Shane Anderson prior to this past week's game against Mansfield, he mentioned, you know, we still have a chance to go out and win 3 out of 5 and make the playoffs. So the fact that they did not win one last week means they still have a chance to win, I guess, 3 out of 4 and make the playoffs. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well, we'll let those hypotheticals play themselves out. What I wanted to do, just for fun, and, you know, because we love both these teams, they're local teams, you know, they've been great in the past at different times, and to some extent at the same time every now and then. So, and the FCA game did this a couple of years ago, where they took a Madden, like, sort of, what do you call that? Not a replication, but a
virtual game.
Yeah, a virtual game. So let's say we're going to play Waco High Midway with their current rosters, but we each get to pick 3 players, right? You pick 3 Waco High players, and I'll pick 3 Midway players. How does that sound?
I like it, and I feel like all my guys are going to be 99 on Madden. You know, as you said, both of them have you know, some good football traditions. They've had some great teams. Midway is not even that far removed from a state championship berth when you think about it.
Right, right.
You know, these things are cyclical, and I feel like at some point both will be back. I feel like it's maybe a steeper climb for Waco High, but I also think they may benefit from a probably soon move to Class 5A. So
right.
That'll benefit the Lions. I'm picking
So,
Waco High, correct?
Yeah. I
All
didn't know
right.
if you were vamping, trying as you tried to think of three good guys.
No. I've got them written down, and I even wrote down 3 Midway guys. But yeah, I'll stick with Waco High.
Well, we can do each.
All right, I'll do that. I could have gone all Johnson on Waco High. I went 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with Booty Johnson. I'm going way back to the Waco High Tigers. And I believe it was John Booty Johnson, one of the stars of those Paul Tyson led teams that won multiple state titles. He had a 330-yard rushing game one night. I mean, you know, he was legit in those days. I mean, it's hard to compare eras, you know, that was long before our time, but so Booty Johnson would be one, just kind of as a nod to the old Tigers. Lewis Fight would be another one. He was a running back for Johnny Tusa in the late 80s, maybe early 90s. And when you talk to Coach Tusa about some of the great players he has, whenever he has talked about Lewis Fight, it was in very reverential tones. He was incredible in high school, had a season where he rushed for 2,300 yards or something, and went on and had a decent, I think, college career. I want to say maybe like Texas A&I, something like that. And I remember John Werner talking about he did make a play in college that was like essentially the equivalent of the Sports Center play of the day or something.
Yeah, he flipped into the end zone. He went up, got clipped on his lower half, you know, did a flip, and I think he landed it in the end zone.
Super
athletic. I
remember
when he was in high school, he had, you know, created a buzz all around town because he was a little bit, you know, he was probably in high school when I was in middle school, but he's one of those guys that you heard about all over town. Okay, so third guy,
going back to the Johnson, Derek Johnson, who, you know, they have a game named after him now. Obviously, he was a beast, a defensive beast at Waco High, and you got to have at least one defender on there. Johnny Tusa always used to put many of his best players on defense, and that worked out pretty well for them. Of course, DJ had memorably a like 30-31 tackle game. There's different reports on that, but at least 30 tackles against John Tyler. You know, incredible, and went on to greatness in the NFL as well.
Yeah, well, you took one of my answers, but I'll tack on a couple more. Jared Salubi. He had the 99-yard run in the state championship game.
Yep.
And Victor Johnson.
He was a DB who ended up going to Oklahoma State, correct?
Right.
Yeah, he was a great player. I remember covering him, watching him play, you know, and then another Johnson who we ought to at least just throw in
on
there.
Those same teams that played at Baylor. I know what direction you're going.
Well, maybe not, because I think you're thinking I was going to say Dwight.
Okay, no, okay.
I was going to say Robert Johnson. He was a quarterback in the early 2000s, and he was very athletic, went on to Arkansas, you know, didn't have the kind of college career I think he wanted, but man, he played one of the best games I've ever seen in a like triple overtime win over A&M Consolidated one night. So he was fun to watch in high school.
Okay, so I'm going to pick Midway guys first, since you get to go Waco High guys first, and then
All
you
right.
can give your Midway guys. I'll go chronologically, and I'm going to start with a guy who was a senior when I was a freshman, named David Maxwell,
Okay.
who was the 4A Defensive Player of the Year in 1995, and also, little known fact, key member of the First Baptist Woodway City Championship basketball team that I also played on.
So he has a special place in your heart.
Yeah, absolutely. He went on to play at Texas A&M. He was a linebacker in high school, and he played D-line in college. My second guy chronologically is John Hubert, who went on to Kansas State, but helped them make a great run under Kent Bechtel, and had a couple of. I mean, he was a dynamic guy. He was, he'd get in the open and look out, he was gone, right?
Right.
And of course, guy number 3, you can't leave out, if the way his season is going, you can't leave out Tanner Mordecai.
So the last 2 you mentioned, I had on my list, Hubert and Mordecai. I went all 21st century on my list. I think Midway's better runs seemingly have been since the turn of the century. They did make the state semifinals in '99?
I believe maybe 99 and 97.
Okay.
Oddly enough.
Yeah. I mean, so it's
98,
not
97.
Like,
that's right. Yeah.
Okay. It's not like they haven't had some great teams, but yes, I did have Mordecai and Hubert on my list as well. The other one I would throw in there, I want to say he ended up being a 4 or 5 star recruit, was Ahmad Dixon, who was incredible at Midway, had a great career there, and went on to a pretty good career for Baylor. Hard hitting, just seemed like a nose for the ball kind of guy on defense. And then one I think we've got to mention, even though I didn't have him on my list, but I'm not sure he was the only Midway guy on our all-time Super Centex team, but I do remember him being on the all-time Super Centex team. And do you know who I'm talking about?
That was the 50th anniversary team you're talking about?
Yeah.
Well, now, so you put me on the spot.
And I'll just put it like this: every team needs a guy who could flip the field, right?
Oh, a punter. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't call his name.
Andy Hawkins.
Oh, okay. That wasn't who I was thinking of.
That would have been like maybe the late 70s or early 80s. Obviously, Andy Hawkins was a great multi-sport athlete, because he went on to become pretty good baseball pitcher in the major leagues, had a no-hitter, and has been a pitching coach for a long time and stuff. Was with the Rangers for a while, but he apparently was an incredible punter back in his day, and I think had scholarships that he could have taken, but chose the baseball route.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to go ahead and make all of Central Texas mad right now and just be that Midway guy. But nobody in Central Texas can beat Midway's all-time pitching staff.
Oh, that's a fair statement. Because
you got Andy Hawkins, you got Brian Barkley, Casey Fossum, and Zach Duke, all 4 of which pitched in the majors.
Yeah, and even just mentioning those guys, you're still leaving off some pretty good Midway pitchers. I mean, obviously, yeah, they've produced some great baseball talent, for no question.
Another guy, Coach Lane's son, was it Brian Lane? Did he pitch in the majors? Anyway,
I don't know.
That's the thing about an improvisational podcast. Sometimes you back yourself into a corner, and and everybody in town realizes you can't remember everything all the time.